freaked me out when I discovered the first one. Not that it doesn't now, but the first was a massive shock to the system. I mean, who wouldn't be downright horrified at the sight of a dead girl dangling from a tree branch? The one who put her there, that's who. I was 18 when I came across the mutilated corpse. That day will always stick out in my mind. It was ground zero, the catalyst for the demented circus act that my life would devolve into. Little did I know it would all be downhill from there. Cheer up, dude. Being held back isn't the end of the world. Just means you get more opportunities to hit on that cute sophomore you've been crushing on. Jacob smirked, nudging my arm. I sighed. It's not the end of the world, but it might as well be. While all of you get to prance across that stage, I'll be stuck shoveling shit in the pig pen. Jacob stayed silent. A breeze swept through the air, rustling the crisp brown and yellow leaves that littered the ground. He knew I was right. I was the farmer's son, and my father viewed me as nothing more than free labor, an otherwise useless, good-for-nothing piece of equipment to be tossed to the curb once I lost my value. And with how abhorrent my grades were, I wasn't exactly proving him wrong. I mean, look on the bright side. Maybe you can. Jacob trailed off, and I nearly bumped into him. What gives, man? You can't just stop right in front of me like that, I grumbled, beginning to step around him. Jacob suddenly reached out and grabbed my arm. A pang of fear jolted through my chest. Jacob was a thin, bony boy with less muscle than SpongeBob SquarePants. Nevertheless, he maintained a grip so tight around my wrist that I thought it might snap. Before I could ask him what in the world he thought he was doing, he pointed to a tree in a nearby clearing. That's when I noticed the body. My heart plummeted into my stomach. Adrenaline surged through my veins as my fight or flight began to kick in. Though every synapse in my brain screamed at me to run, I found myself glued to the spot. Grayson, is that what I think it is? Jacob muttered, shattering my morbid reverie. I'm pretty sure. What do we do? Should we call the cops? How has no one seen it by now? I'm gonna get a closer look, Jacob murmured as he started to trudge toward the suspended remains. I debated on leaving. I wanted to put as much distance between me and that gruesome scene as I possibly could. But in the end, my curiosity won out. I can't believe I'm doing this, I mumble, trotting to catch up to my friend. We continued to walk through the open field until we stood directly in front of it. I don't know why, but I hadn't expected the smell. The putrid stench of rot and decay swam into my nostrils well before we reached the cadaver. It nearly made me gag from how overpowering it was. Once we were right up on it, I was really able to drink in its features. The deceased was a woman. It made me nauseous the way her corpse was softly swaying in the wind. Thin black hair clung to her blood-spattered nightgown. I think it was white at one time, but the fabric had degraded to a deep yellow. Her brittle, pallid appendages hung limply, never to regain mobility again. But worst of all was her face. The woman's pale blue eyes were bulging from her skull. Dried blood trailed from the sockets down her cheeks and eventually pooled at the noose secured tightly around her neck. That was what really got me. Her eyes. I could still see the pain and fear behind each of her protruding irises, and my heart absolutely shattered for her. I couldn't stand to look any longer. Jacob, I'm calling the police. We shouldn't be here. What if the killer is hiding nearby? He turned to me, mouth still slightly agape. Yeah, the cops. You're right, let's go. Jacob and I returned to the sidewalk where we'd first noticed the woman, while I dialed 911. The phone rang for longer than it should have before the operator's voice cut through the line. 911. What is your emergency? The woman sounded exhausted, like years upon years of 2 packs a day were whittling down her lung capacity. Hi, yes. I found a dead body. Can you send somebody to, I don't know, take her to the morgue, I guess? What is your location? Emergency services will be en route momentarily. Coming up on the intersection of Maple Road and Cherry Street. Please hurry. The operator suddenly cleared her throat. effectively cutting me off. "Pardon me, but you said the intersection of Maple Road and Cherry Street, yes?" My brows furrowed. The lady on the other end of the line had dropped her reassuring facade. She sounded almost accusatory. "Yeah, that's right." "Sir, please continue to go about your day. Nothing is out of the ordinary at the intersection of Cherry and Maple. Services will not be dispatched." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Everything was normal. I'd just seen a lynching victim with my own two eyes, and the operator was telling me that was normal? No, maybe you misheard me. I said there's a dead body. I need you to send someone." The line was silent for a tense moment before the woman's voice cut back over my phone speaker. "Please do not submit a false report again, or you will face legal repercussions. Have a nice day." This isn't a joke. "Hello? Hello?" No persistence did no good. The operator hung up on me. "So what they say? Are they sending someone?" Jacob asked, gazing up at me expectantly. "No, actually," I said, lowering the phone from my ear. "They told me nothing was wrong." I was left in complete shock for the remainder of the day. If the police wouldn't take me seriously, that left me little choice but to go home and try to erase it from my memory. But I just couldn't. The image of that woman's lifeless corpse was permanently seared into my brain. I felt like I owed it to her to find justice, or at the very least, someone to give her a proper burial. "Grayson, dinner," Mom shouted. "I'll be there in a second," I yelled back, gently placing the last of the freshly laid eggs into my basket. The one good thing about being an involuntary farmhand, it helped keep my mind occupied. At least, it was good for something. I silently joined my parents at the table. Mom set a plate full of meatloaf and mashed potatoes before me. Normally, I would have demolished it, but in light of what I'd witnessed earlier that day, I didn't know if my appetite would ever come back. "Why aren't you eating, honey? You've barely touched your potatoes." "Is something wrong?" Mom asked, a twinge of concern percolating her words. "Yeah, so, this is gonna sound crazy, but..." "Spit it out, boy," Dad interjected through a mouthful of food. "I saw a dead body today?" My parents locked eyes with one another. Dad gulped down his food, but he didn't motion to take another bite. Mom stared silently at him, sweat beading on her brow. "That was probably nothing. Just a leftover display from Halloween." Mom chuckled nervously. "Your mother is right," Dad affirmed, flashing me a toothy grin. "It was probably just a figment of your imagination. No need for concern." The fork trembled in his grasp as he stabbed a slab of meatloaf. "Don't worry about finishing dinner. You can be excused if you're not hungry," Mom said, that anxious smile still plastered to her face. "Thanks. I'm gonna take you up on that offer." I scooted my chair out from the table and returned to my duties. I didn't want to spend any more time around my folks that evening. They were acting strange, and I didn't like it one bit. Trepidation bubbled in my gut as Jacob and I walked to school. The trip was marred by a tense, uneasy silence. Then, Jacob said what was on both of our minds. "Grayson, do you think she'll still be there?" "I sure hope not," I said, keeping my eyes locked to the ground. We each subconsciously held our breaths as we approached the clearing. I prayed that the woman would be gone. My heart palpitated wildly in my chest, blood rushing in my ears. I clenched my eyes shut as we came into view, and there it was.